everyone. Well, just like I've done in years past with my college football channel, this year I am going to be doing season preview and prediction videos. Look out on the college football channel because they are coming as well. But I figured I'd do it unique this year since this is going to be the first off season with the professional football channel that I'm going to go ahead and do a NFL prediction first. And I'm going to start off with the New England Patriots, my favorite team. Now, as for last year, I will be putting a timestamp in the description, by the way, because I have a lot to say before I get to the Patriots season preview and prediction part. I'm gonna put a timestamp in the description. That way, if you want to just skip straight to it, you can just skip straight to it. But to truly understand how disappointing last year's season and to understand what the Patriots are up against, not just in terms of their schedule, but in terms of fixing issues within the organization, you have to know what has gone on with the organization since 2019. 2019, in January, which is actually the 2018 season, Patriots won what is to date their last Super Bowl, Super Bowl 53. That to date not only is the Patriots' last Super Bowl, is the Patriots' last playoff win. 2019, the Patriots go to the playoffs, losing the first round to the Titans. Didn't make it in 2020. That was the COVID year. 2021, made it in as a wild card, get blown out by the Bills, and have not made it to the playoffs since then. And you look at that scenario, it's been an increasing disappointment ever since 2021 with the Patriots. In 2022, Patriots go 8-9, one game away from the playoffs. They're thinking, oh, maybe all they need to do is get an actual offensive coordinator, since the Patriots didn't really have an actual offensive coordinator in 2022. But then we get to 2023, and the Patriots do have an actual offensive coordinator, but the problems within the organization showed in the worst way possible. The Patriots went 4-13 that year. Bill Belichick, well, I say Bill Belichick was fired. In reality, they mutually parted ways, basically meaning Bill Belichick wanted to part ways with the Patriots. The Patriots wanted to part ways with Bill Belichick. So they mutually agreed they were going to part ways. Bye. Then in 2024, Gerard Mayo, for some reason, was named as the head coach. I think what it was that Kraft had promised Gerard Mayo was going to be the head coach, and so he went through with the promise. But it completely flopped. 4-13. A lot of games for the Patriots absolutely got blown out. I am not telling you anything that you don't already know when I say that 2023 and 2024 were very disappointing years for the New England Patriots. But the reason why you have to truly understand 2019 through 2024 to understand the decline of the Patriots is because that's where the decline starts. 2019, the myth is that the Patriots' downfall started when Tom Brady left, and don't get me wrong, Tom Brady leaving definitely accelerated the decline of the Patriots. But the true decline starts in 2019. That's when Rob Gronkowski announced he was done. That turned out to really just be a symptom of something bigger going wrong with the Patriots. Sure enough, Gronkowski retires. Tom Brady loses his biggest target. And there was a lot of games where the Patriots could have won in 2019 that they lost because Tom Brady was short of a target. They tried Ben Watson, that didn't work out. They tried a few other tight ends, that didn't work out. Patriots end up going to the playoffs and losing in the first round in a game that seemed like a classic clutch Brady situation, only for Brady to throw an interception. Then Brady retires, and instead of trying to draft a quarterback, they sign Cam Newton, which, don't get me wrong, I do think Cam Newton gets an unfair rep when it comes to his time with the Patriots. But the fact of the matter is that the Patriots should have had their successor on the roster in 2019 but they didn't. The Cam Newton situation doesn't really work out. They draft Mac Jones 2021. Has a good first year, but then just kind of declines afterwards. And the Patriots haven't been the same since. 3 consecutive losing seasons. Patriots win a combined 8-26 in 2023 and 2024. 8-26. The fact that the Patriots, sorry if you're hearing a buzzing in the background, my phone's going off, but I'm not answering it because I don't know the number. But anyway, the Patriots should never have a losing record in 2 combined seasons, let alone not even get to double digits combined in 2 combined seasons. But the fact of the matter is that happened to the Patriots. 8-26 since 2023. Patriots only won 8 games in 2022, and that's sad. And the reason why the Patriots are in the position they are today, I'm going to say something that's not going to be popular with the Patriots fans, but I almost made my channel on Roll Tide 99 by saying some of the things that other Alabama fans didn't want to admit. I'm going to say something right here that other Patriots fans don't want to admit. The reason the Patriots are in the position they are today is because of how bad Bill Belichick was as a GM. Now, do not get me wrong. As head coach of the Patriots, Bill Belichick, if he's not the first best thing to ever happen to the Patriots, he's the second best thing, with Tom Brady being the first best thing. But as GM, he's probably in the top 5 worst things to happen to the Patriots. He took over GM in 2010. The only good notable player I can even name that he drafted in that time that actually worked out for the Patriots, well, actually 2, Rob Gronkowski and Julian Edelman. Every other high-profile pick he tried to go after either got picked by somebody else, Belichick traded away the pick, or he took a shot at that player and failed tremendously. And I can point to 3 consecutive years where Belichick either traded away a pick when he had the opportunity to draft a guy that turned out to be the best thing that happened to the organization that actually drafted him, or passed on him for another player that completely flopped. 2018, the Patriots had not 1, but 2 first-round picks. They picked Isaiah Wynn with, I believe, pick 23, but it also could have been pick 22. And they drafted Sony Michel with pick 31. The only notable thing either of those 2 did was in Super Bowl 53 when Sony Michel scored the only touchdown of the entire game. Otherwise, none of those 2 did anything memorable. Who was drafted with pick 32 of the 2018 NFL Draft? That's right. The Ravens famously traded up, got the 32nd pick from the Eagles, and drafted Lamar Jackson. That alone would have fixed half of the issues that plagued the Patriots from 2020 to 2023, because you would have drafted Lamar Jackson and not have to deal with the quarterback issues that plagued Brady in his final year with the Patriots, plagued Cam Newton in his only year with the Patriots, and plagued Mac Jones in his years with the Patriots. If you would have drafted Lamar Jackson with the 31st or the 23rd pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, somebody correct me if I'm wrong with the 23rd, it could have been the 22nd. Either way, the point isn't to get the pick get the number of the pick right. It's to show you who the Patriots passed on in favor of people who flopped. The following year, Patriots had pick 32 in the NFL Draft. They picked N'Keal Harry. Do any of you even remember N'Keal Harry? No, you don't? Yeah, because he did nothing notable. Fourth pick in the second round of that draft. Guess who is the next wide receiver taken? That's right. The 49ers selected Deebo Samuel. Only thing notable he ever did, he's a multi-time Pro Bowler. N'Keal Harry you can't even name because you don't even remember him being on the field. And if you do remember him being on the field, it's because he dropped a pass or couldn't catch a pass. And then in 2020, Patriots have a first round pick, I believe, somewhere in the 20s. You get to the pick and they trade it away to some team. I don't remember who it was. But you traded away the pick. Mind you, Tom Brady had just left the organization, and at the time, Jarrett Stidham was the best quarterback still on the roster. But you trade away the pick when you could have drafted a quarterback. Who's the next quarterback taken after that pick? That's right, Jalen frickin' Hurts. You passed on Lamar Jackson in 2018 because you thought Isaiah Wynn and Sony Michel would be better long term than Lamar Jackson. You passed on Deebo Samuel because you thought N'Keal Harry would be better than him. And you don't take a guy in 2021 when you had an opportunity to draft Jalen Hurts. Imagine, okay, obviously if you draft Lamar Jackson in 2018, you're not drafting Jalen Hurts. But imagine if you would have had on your roster either Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts, take your pick of whichever one you want, plus Deebo Samuel. That would have been a lot better future for the Patriots than what happened. Belichick didn't really know what he was doing when it came to drafting. He kept trading away first round picks for lower picks, hoping somebody would work out. What I forgot to mention is that in 2018, the Patriots actually did draft a quarterback, but it was in the 7th round, and it was Danny Etling, who never even took the field for a team ever in his life, other than preseason games. I think a lot of the Patriots fans romanticize Belichick because he won 6 Super Bowls as a coach. And I'm not saying Bill Belichick's a terrible coach. He's a great coach, probably the best one in NFL history. Easily the best thing that ever happened to the Patriots, unless you consider Tom Brady or Robert Kraft to be the best thing that happened to the Patriots. But as GM of the Patriots, he's in the top 5 worst things that ever happened to the Patriots. Admittedly, I'm not an expert on 1980s or early 1990s Patriots history. So there could be something that happened in that time period where the Patriots were not necessarily that great that happened that's worse than Bill Belichick to happen to the Patriots as GM. But he's definitely one of the worst things to happen to the Patriots as a GM. Again, I'm not saying he's a terrible thing to happen to the Patriots as a head coach. I'm saying he's terrible as a GM. And while I still respect him as a head coach, heck, I would have taken him in 2024 as a head coach if you could have come to an agreement to where he wouldn't be the GM. But you couldn't come into an agreement, and so you had to let him walk. Now, I'm not saying that none of the burden for 2024 falls on Gerard Mayo or Robert Kraft. Robert Kraft was the guy who put Mayo in this position, not even so much as letting him be an offensive or defensive coordinator. I have made this point in other comment sections, and the typical response I get is that Dan Campbell never was a coordinator before he became a head coach, and look what happened with him. Campbell's an amazing head coach. He's the exception, not the rule. More often, if you put a guy as head coach who's never been a coordinator before, you get Freddie Kitchens with the Browns. And I think that was a big mistake by Kraft, is not letting him be a coordinator. If the long-term plan was to keep Mayo and have him eventually be a head coach, what I think he should have done should have been hire Mike Vrabel for a couple years while you put Mayo as your defensive coordinator. And then in a couple years, or whenever it takes Mike Vrabel to either move on or retire, then put Mayo in the position. But Kraft stuck with some. My only guess is that maybe it was in Mayo's contract, but anyway. And then Mayo, of course, made a lot of dumb decisions. Like, for example, why would you kick a 67-yard field goal down by 2? That made no sense. But anyway, that's why the Patriots have been in the position that they've been in the past few years, ever since 2019 when Rob Gronkowski retired, and then the downfall got accelerated when Brady retired. Now, the Patriots, this year, it's looking up. Patriots had a lot of money to spend in free agency, absolutely loaded that defense, which was to be expected since Mike Vrabel was primarily a defensive guy. On offense, you do get Stephon Diggs. He's easily your signature achievement offensive-wise this year. Might even turn out to be your crowning achievement in free agency, period. You do also draft Will Campbell to help with the offensive line. Your focus was to retool the offensive line first. That way Drake May can actually stay upright. One of the lone bright spots of 2024 was Drake May. The other bright spot was Christian Gonzalez on the defense, who's going to be probably the only block of the defense. In terms of key departures, I really can't think of any that are key departures. Patriots were just so little on talent last year that you can really only remember Christian Gonzalez and Drake May. The entire coaching staff is gone. Mike Vrabel brings in his own staff. I think this year's going to look up for the Patriots. Is it going to be a one-year rebuild? No, it's definitely not. But I am more confident in this Patriots team than I was in last year's Patriots team after what happened. That's it in terms of looking at their schedule. Looking at what you need to know before you look at the Patriots schedule. Now let's look at the Patriots schedule. That was a long rant. I'm looking at my time right now, and it's like 17:09. Now let's get to the schedule. Patriots are going to kick off at home in week 1 against the Raiders. You're catching the Raiders at a good time. Pete Carroll's back after a year of retirement. Yes, Vrabel was away from head coach for 1 year, but he also did help manage football operations for the Browns during that time. Pete Carroll was just completely away from football. And usually when you take away from football, it's hard to get back into the game. Ask Sean Payton. Geno Smith is the quarterback, which, while not bad, is not going to get you where you're going to want to go if you're the Raiders. It is at home. I think if there's a time you want to catch the Raiders this year, it's week 1. I think you win that one against the Raiders. But then afterwards, you then go on the road to Miami. Miami has always been a thorn in the side for the Patriots. I think the Patriots overall have a losing record. Even during the Brady Belichick years, the Patriots have a losing record in Miami. Heck, think of the infamous 2017 game where the Patriots went into that game with, I want to say, a 17-game road winning streak, about to tie the record with the 49ers for most road wins, and then lose in underwhelming fashion to the Dolphins. Of course, everybody remembers 2018, the Miami Miracle game. And I don't even remember if the Patriots have beaten the Dolphins on the road ever since Brady retired. I think no, unless I'm forgetting something. You go on the road in week 2 against the Dolphins. As long as Tua is the starting quarterback for the Dolphins, which I think he will, I think you lose this game on the road against the Dolphins. And then you have one that up until last week, I'm recording this on June 10th, 2025, by the way. As of now, tomorrow is going to make a week that this story broke. Up until that point, I would have said Patriots win because it was likely that Mason Rudolph was going to be the starter. But the reason why I held off on making this video was because I didn't know if Aaron Rodgers for sure was going to sign as quarterback for the Steelers. Sure enough, last week he did. I think that's enough to bring the Steelers over the line to beat the Patriots. I do think the Steelers make the playoffs. I don't think they're going to make a deep run with Aaron Rodgers. But I think Aaron Rodgers is a lot better than Mason Rudolph. Say what you want about his time with the Jets. It was definitely a disappointment with the Jets, but you also got to remember he was injured in year 1, and in year 2, You still had a terrible head coach in Robert Saleh, who for some reason wasn't fired after 2023. Aldridge was also a terrible head coach. Woody Allen's a terrible owner. The GM's terrible. The roster and talent level was terrible. He gets a lot more talent in Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh gets the win over the Patriots in Week 2, bringing the Patriots record to what I think is going to be 1-2. Good news is you stay at home the next week. You get to beat up on the Panthers. I think you win that one. Not really much to say about the Panthers there. But then after that game, you start a 3-game road stretch. It's never easy to win 3 consecutive road games in the NFL when they're back to back to back. What makes it even worse is that in Week 5 is your toughest game of the entire year because you have to go on the road to Buffalo to play the Bills. Buffalo has been the thorn in the side of the Patriots ever since Brady retired. Even when Brady was in his last year, I still remember a game in New England where the Buffalo Bills came very close to beating the Patriots in New England with Tom Brady still as the starting quarterback. Ever since that moment, the Bills have been the thorn in the side, and the only way the Patriots can beat the Bills is if something very fluky happens. 2021, the Patriots beat the Bills in Buffalo, but they needed a game where the weather was terrible. It was so windy that Mac Jones only threw 3 times in the game. Josh Allen, I think, had passes in the single digits as well. And the Patriots won that game 14-10. Then you had the fluke win in 2023, which I believe was at home. And then in 2024, you beat them in Gillette. But Josh Allen only played 1 snap, and it was just to keep his starting streak alive. You sat your starters. The Bills sat their starters. It was a glorified preseason game. That still counted to the record. Other than those 3 times, which were very fluky wins for the Patriots over the Bills, the Patriots have had no luck against the Bills. Notable instances being 2020. You were still somewhat fighting to keep. You were fighting for an 8-8 record at that point, and you'll get absolutely smashed by the Bills. 2021, coming off of that game, I think that was like a month after that fluky game with the weather, but that was terrible. They beat you in Gillette Stadium. 2021 wild card, you get absolutely destroyed by the Bills, humiliated on national television that everybody saw. 2022, last week of the season, you're 8-8, needing a win over the Bills, who literally that previous Monday saw a guy collapse and die on the field. Luckily, it was Damar Hamlin, if you're wondering. He got resuscitated and he lived. But less than a week after seeing a guy die on their field, you go to Buffalo and you get mauled by the Bills when you needed a win to go to the playoffs. And honestly, this game, I don't know why it's prime time on NBC in Week 5 when the Patriots go on the road to the Bills, because not only do I not expect the Patriots to win, I'd be surprised if it's even close. I think if this game is less than 4 score victory for the Bills, it should be considered a disappointment for the Bills. Yes, I know the Patriots did retool themselves, but there's still not enough talent on that roster to match the Bills' talent level. I think, and especially with the game being in the Bills' home stadium, the Bills should dominate the Patriots. Luckily, in Week 6, you go from the toughest game of the year to the easiest game of the year on the road against the Saints. The Saints have just been terrible. Talk about franchises that revolve their franchise around one guy. That one guy leaves, and then everything goes to crap. The Saints counted on Breeze being immortal. Of course, that didn't happen. And then everything is made worse when Sean Payton retires the year after Breeze retired. The only quarterback who have a winning record in multiple games since Drew Brees has been Derek Carr, and now he's retired. Say what you want about Derek Carr. He definitely wasn't the best quarterback the Saints ever had. He might be the biggest free agency bust in Saints history, but he was the lone thing keeping you afloat. In 2023, his injury exposed everything wrong with the Saints in 2024, and now being that he was the only veteran you even had in the quarterback room, now that he's gone, I don't think the Saints are good this year. Best case scenario for the Saints is that they had the worst record in the NFL and can get the first round pick and draft Arch Manning or whoever. But I think you beat the Saints. Yes, it's on the road, but I don't think the crowd support's going to be there for the Saints. Because it's been waning away ever since Breeze left, and the Saints have been exposed as terrible. I think you win against the Saints in Week 6, which I think would bring your record at that point to 3-3. Then you get the last game of the 3-game road stretch, going on the road to Tennessee. Tennessee had the worst record last year. They then go out and draft Cam Ward, who I think has a bright future. I do think the Patriots are more talented than the Titans, but at that point, how much has that 3-game road stretch taken out of the Patriots? I think it's going to take a lot out of the Patriots, especially considering New York, New Orleans, Nashville in 3-week span. I think that takes a lot out of the Patriots, and I think that takes just enough out of the Patriots to where the Titans win that one, bringing it what I think would be to 3-4. Luckily, you didn't get to go home for 2 consecutive games. Home against the Cleveland Browns, not much to say there. I think you win that one. Then home against the Falcons. The Falcons have to be the best team in the league that's held back by a terrible coach. Raheem Morris isn't that great as a head coach. Luckily, he has Michael Penix. I expect a lot out of Michael Penix. But I also think Raheem Morris is holding him back. I think in this game in Gillette Stadium, it's going to come down to Raheem Morris making a stupid mistake, and the Patriots win this one. So I think your record at that point is 5-4. 4 going into Week 10. You've played more than half your games at that point, and then you go on the road to Tampa Bay. I think Tampa Bay wins this one. Baker Mayfield can still perform just enough to get the Buccaneers to the playoffs. Again, they're held back by another not-so-great head coach in Todd Bowles. But I think the fact that you have to travel from the extreme north of the country to the extreme south of the country makes a difference. And I think you lose to the Buccaneers there, bringing your record to 5-5. The good news is you get to come back home and you play the Jets. Jets are a complete dumpster fire. Aaron Glenn, I think, could turn him around, but it's going to take a while for Aaron Glenn to turn him around. And I think you win that one in Week 11, bringing what I think would be your record to 6-5. Unfortunately, in Week 12, you have to go to Cincinnati. Now, you did beat Cincinnati last year, but that was in Week 1. And Cincinnati has a terrible record in Week 1. But by this point of the season, as long as Joe Burrow is healthy, I think the Bengals will have a good record. I also think at that point, being that it would be your 12th consecutive game, that is going to be taking a toll on you. It's hard to play 12 consecutive games in the NFL. Ideally, you want your bye week somewhere around Week 9 or 10. That way it's at a midpoint. But the Patriots don't get their bye week until Week 14, and they would only have 4 games left in the season. I think that combined with, I think the Bengals not only are more talented, but are going to be looking for revenge after the Patriots held them out of the playoffs. That Week 1 loss held the Bengals out of the playoffs. I think the Bengals win that one, probably rather convincingly in Week 12. And then in Week 13, you come back home to play the Giants on Monday Night Football, so at least you get an extra day rest there. I think you win that one. Good news for the Patriots is that after 13 games, you get your bye week. But the bad news is that the competition does not get any easier In fact, the two games immediately after your bye week are your third toughest game and your second toughest game, respectively. I already said I think the toughest game for the Patriots is in week 5 when they go on the road to play Buffalo, but week 15 and week 16 might be the third toughest game and the second toughest game, respectively. Week 15, you come home, but you have to play the Bills. I think at that point, the Bills are going to be playing for the number 1 seed. I'll explain why when I do the Bills prediction video later on. But I think the Bills are going to be fighting for the number 1 seed in the AFC. And if you're the AFC team, you're going to want home field advantage. Because imagine if you're a Bills fan and you make it to the conference game and you're playing the Chiefs. Imagine what difference it would make if you get to play the game in Buffalo rather than having to go to Arrowhead Stadium to play the game. That's going to make a lot of difference. Especially last year, considering it was a tough game, a close game in Arrowhead. Imagine if the Bills would have been able to play the game in Buffalo rather than in Arrowhead. And so I think the Bills actually win this one in Gillette Stadium. I think the Bills sweep the Patriots. Unfortunately, things don't get any easier in week 16 because you, at that point, would have to go on the road to play the Ravens. There's 3 teams, I believe, have a shot at going to the AFC Championship this year. The Chiefs, obviously. The Bills, as I have already said, and the Ravens. The Ravens are going to be playing at that point, I believe, to get not only a division that I think is going to be stacked, being that you have the Steelers and the Bengals in that division, but also to potentially get a second round home game. Because if you're playing a second round home game, especially if you end up having to play either the Chiefs or the Bills, you're going to want that second round home game. I think that's what the Ravens are going to be playing for at that point, and I think you'll lose to the Ravens on the road. That's the reason why I say it's the second toughest game. Obviously, I think the Bills on the road is the toughest game, but I think the Ravens on the road is the second toughest game. Then you combine with the fact that Lamar Jackson is going to be playing lights out. I think you lose that one. Second consecutive road game for the Patriots as they go on the road to play the Jets. I think you win that one, meaning that I think you sweep the Jets. So far in the division, I think you get swept by the Bills, but sweep the Jets. Your last game of the season is going to be at home against Miami. This could very well be a win and you're in game at that point, especially if the Patriots record is what I think it's going to be, and the Dolphins record is going to be what I think it's going to be. I think at that point it could very well be a win and you're in, lose you're out situation. But I think the Patriots, the difference with the Dolphins is that they're playing it at home instead of in week 2 when you have to play the Dolphins on the road, which I think you lose. I think you win that one. So therefore, I think the Patriots record is going to be 9-8. 9-8. Definitely better than 4-13. In fact, if this goes as the way I'm predicting it, you will have beaten your total amount of games won in 2023 and in 2024. However, is that going to be enough for the Patriots to get to the playoffs? I do not know. On one hand, I think a 9-8 record will be better than some of the teams in. Like, if the Patriots would have been in the NFC, I think a 9-8 would have been enough to get them in. But in the AFC, not only do you have the division winners, who this year, I think the division winners are going to be the Chiefs, the Bills, the Ravens, and the Texans, which also get a stacked line of wild card contenders. The Steelers are definitely a wild card contender. The Bengals are a wild card contender. That's 2 slots right there. Dolphins in your own division are a playoff contender. Who else there is left? Who else there is left for that possible seventh spot? Patriots, maybe if they have the season I'm predicting them to do, but if there's injuries on the team or the team doesn't gel together enough, that could hurt the Patriots. Dolphins, but if Tua gets injured, that spells doom for them. Jaguars, forget about them. Colts, forget about them. I'm trying to think of other teams that would be in contention for that spot. Bengals, I think they do get to the playoffs, but I already said them. Definitely not the Jets. Chargers, they could definitely be a playoff contender this year. Broncos, there's going to be probably like a 5-team race for that 7th spot. Is a 9-8 record going to be enough for that? Probably not. I don't think the Patriots make the playoffs this year. It's definitely going to be a step in the right direction. Heck, if you win 5 games, it's a step in the right direction. But it's not going to be enough considering who you would probably be contending for with that spot, especially considering that for that 7th spot, you're probably going to be contending with the Dolphins, the Chargers, and the Broncos for that last spot in the playoff. So you would definitely have to have a better record than the Dolphins because they're in your own division. You do not play the Chargers and you do not play the Broncos. You do play this, who I think is going to be the 6th seed and the 5th seed, the Steelers and the Bengals. And again, I think you lose to both of those two. I think you get swept by the Bills, and I think you'll lose to the Ravens. So there would be no sort of things that would scream at that point, Patriots are better than Broncos or Chargers. But anyway, that's what I think is going to happen for the Patriots. Be on the lookout for other ones. I don't know when they're going to come out. Also be a lookout on Roll Tide 99. I hope to have the video for that one out, which is going to start off with the Ohio State Buckeyes, the defending champions, by the end of this week, maybe the weekend. Next one I'm going to do for pro football here on the Go Pats 99 channel. We're going to go ahead and we're going to stay with the AFC, but we're going to look at the team that I mentioned a whole lot in this video, the Buffalo Bills. Until then, this is Go Pats 99. See you later.